Welcome to World Menopause Month, Embrace the Change, a virtual town hall presented by the Black Women's Agenda, Inc. in partnership with AARP. I am Dr. Kimberly Jeffries Leonard, BWA's Vice President of Administration, and tonight we're creating space for open, empowering conversation about menopause, a topic long overlooked in our communities. Together, we'll learn, share, and lead the change. Before we get started, we will have greetings from our Black Women's Agenda Incorporated's presidents, Guinevere Catchings-Hess. President Hess.
Thank you so much, Kim. Good evening, everyone. We're truly delighted to have you join us for this important and timely discussion. To our panelists, thank you for making time in your busy schedules to be a part of this event. This month, we observe World Menopause Month. We come together as Black women's organizations to raise awareness, share knowledge, and foster open conversations about menopause. It's a natural life stage experience that happens to millions of women around the world. We're breaking the silence and ending the stigma and supporting one another, which is vital steps toward empowering women to manage their health and well-being with confidence and dignity. Now, tonight's Town Hall is a space where we are learning to embrace the change, share with one another, support one another, and we're extremely grateful to AARP, our wonderful partner, to help bring this wonderful webinar to you tonight. We're also grateful to our national collaborating organizations and boards of the directors for the Black Women's Agenda for helping to make this event possible. So let us use this opportunity to listen, ask questions, and uplift each other as we strive for greater understanding and advocacy for women's health. Thank you so much for joining us. Together, we can create a more informed and compassionate world for all of us. So please sit back and enjoy the webinar. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you so much, President Gwen. We appreciate your words and we appreciate you setting the tone for tonight. Now, we are going to get right into it. We will begin with expert perspectives, and then we'll transition to real women voices from our board of directors and from our national sister organizations. Let me take a moment and introduce you to our first panel, our panel of experts. We have with us Dr. Yesmean Wahdan. As the Senior Vice President and Head of U.S. and North America Medical Affairs at Bayer Healthcare, Dr. Wahdan is driven by a deep commitment to global health, aligning her passion for patient care with Bayer's dedication to research, health for all, and accessibility. Her belief that informed, healthy individuals can lead to stronger communities and a better future is central to her leadership. Welcome, Dr. Wahdan.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Tamara McCants. Dr. McCants is a distinguished pharmacy leader, scholar, and advocate whose work sits at the intersection of clinical excellence, education, and health equity. She currently serves as the president of the National Pharmaceutical Association, a role in which she has committed to elevating the role of pharmacists, especially Black pharmacists, in improving access to care. Dr. McCants holds faculty appointments at Howard University College of Pharmacy, where she is assistant professor and director of residency programs and practice transformation. Welcome, Dr. McCants. Next, we have Dr. Reed Tuckson. As the managing director of Tuckson Health Connections, LLC, he leads an organization that advances multidisciplinary initiatives to support optimal health and well-being. Currently, he is focused on his role as co-convener and chair of the board of the Coalition for Trust in Health and Science, which is dedicated to bringing together the entire health-related ecosystem to support people in accessing and using reliable evidence to make personally appropriate health choices and decisions. Welcome, Dr. Tuckson, and thank you for being our male voice on this panel.
Thank you.
Next, we welcome Ms. Camille Wilson. She is a dynamic senior executive with dual expertise in aging services leadership and women's health innovation. She currently serves as Senior Vice President of Program Development and Management in the Digital Transformation Group at AARP, while leading groundbreaking initiatives in menopause education and support as founder of Menopause Made Modern by Claret Circle. She brings unique insight from 18 plus years of executive experience in aging services to address critical gaps in women's midlife health and support. She is recognized for creating scalable frameworks that transform how organizations and communities support healthy aging and life transitions, with particular expertise in serving diverse populations. Welcome, Ms. Wilson. So, we are now going to get started with this extraordinary panel. You'll hear me call everyone by first names at this point, but we want to have this conversation so we can better inform ourselves from an expert perspective on these areas of menopause. So, let's start with the very basics. Tell me, what are the key stages of menopause?
Well, I'm happy to jump in, Kimberly, and start. So, maybe I'll start with a common misconception that folks have to lead into the discussion about stages of menopause. A common misconception that folks generally will have is that this is a condition of those who are well on into their years, right? And we know that that is in fact not the case. So we know that there is a perimenopausal stage where women will actually start to experience the symptoms of menopause and start that transition as early as their late 30s and early 40s. Right. And so women will begin to having symptoms of sleep disturbance, hot flashes, night sweats, etc. And that goes on into their 40s and 50s. And this transition can last up to 7 to 10 years before they're actually in the midst of menopause, if you will. And so, those are, I think, the real key stages, is that perimenopausal period of time where the symptoms start to develop, and then on into the menopausal phase, which by definition clinically is a woman having had a cessation in her menses for about a 12-month period of time.
So we're looking at something that can start as early as our 30s, can last as long as who knows how long, and the stages just kind of flow into each other. I think that is important information that we need to know. I know that there are lots of people who think that you have to be a certain age before you actually start menopause, and then at a certain age it magically stops, which I think a lot of us on this panel realize that is not the case. But as we understand these stages, why has menopause been a silent topic amongst Black women? Camille?
Yeah, so I think that it's tied to our reproductive health, right? So there's a lot that I think in general, culturally, that we don't talk about, but it's also associated with aging, right? And it's something that our grandmothers, some of our mothers, right, went through and just kind of suffered through it. It wasn't something that had a lot of discussion. It was just, you got older, you hit a certain age, you sweat a lot, your sleep got disrupted, and maybe you were cranky. And so I think certainly generationally, we have started to see with Gen X, and I'm a proud member of Gen X, more conversation. We've reached the point, I am actively perimenopausal myself, and reached this life stage and was completely unprepared for it. And that was after having a decades-long relationship with a certified OBGYN. And so it wasn't something that my mother talked to me about or her mother talked to her about. And in fact, my own experience has differed from my mother, who had a uterine hysterectomy. And pretty much, when I went to her and asked her, why didn't you tell me about this? What was your experience? She says, I don't know. I had a hysterectomy, and, the rest is history. I never really had hot flashes, and, I was a little moody, was a little cranky, but she hadn't had a conversation, right, with her mother or her grandmother. And so I think generationally, it's not part of, for many families, of course, it would be a sweeping generalization to say that it wasn't discussed in all families. But I think as a rule, right, we just weren't practiced. Our mothers didn't talk to us about it. And the hope and expectation certainly is that we're seeing a generational shift where Gen X women, we're not only wanting to talk about it, we want to know what's going on with our bodies. We want to understand, what responsible treatment looks like for us. And I think those women coming up behind us certainly will have the expectation that there will be readily accessible treatment options available to them when they reach this stage.
Those are excellent points, Camille. And I might add that, I think from a provider perspective, it's difficult to unsee the fact that along with those sort of cultural aspects that Camille spoke to, you're also see and understand that we have a population, right, the Black population that is struggling with inequities and disparities when we talk about challenges during the reproductive years, right? Let alone now an aspect of life that is not spoken about, right? And not culturally something that is, again, addressed. And so now you're having to struggle with that aspect along with the inequities and disparities that come along with healthcare in that space as well. So it's doubly as challenging for the Black community and the Black population, which again is something important to keep in mind as we look towards better treatment, better aspects of care from that perspective.
I'm going to ask that. Thank you. I'm going to ask that everybody kind of come to the stage because you both, Camille and Yesmean, you both bring up some really critical aspects of the cultural nuances of women of color and women of African descent. I can speak for myself and say that, I only kind of learned about menopause from my mother when she had a hysterectomy and was thrown into menopause. And my grandmother, who we had with us until 109, she just kind of talked, you don't talk about that change because, women, we don't talk about that. So there was never any conversation with her about even what her experience was like. What I do know is that when you talk about equitable care and equitable treatment in the African American community and women of African descent, we are certainly dealing with these disparities. So how do we advocate for equitable care, and how do we ask for the kinds of treatment that is going to be best for us? How do we even know what's best for us?
Yeah. So I am so glad. Actually, I'm grateful that my mother and my aunt actively talked about lean on me when they were going through menopause. And I was so young that I did not know what they were even talking about. And if this was something that white males experienced, we would have had a cure for this. And so as we talk about equity and where to be able to advocate for yourself, first I must say Happy American Pharmacist Month to all of the pharmacists. And thank you so much, Dr. Jeffries Leonard, for allowing me to be here today. But the pharmacist is the most accessible healthcare professional. Most Americans, nearly 9 out of 10 of Americans, live within 5 miles of a community pharmacy. And pharmacists are medication experts with a minimum of 4 years of specialized education. So I'm highlighting that to say you have to know where to go get the care. You have to know who to ask when you really and truly have a question. And so I'm very grateful, like Camille was mentioning, that there's women on social media now. Shout out to Stephanie Moss, a pharmacist from Xavier University now. If you follow people on social media, that they are really actively talking about it. And as we talk about it and we have more, we're not afraid to talk about it no more. We're not like how your grandmother was, where that was a true thing, that we couldn't talk about this type of thing. But at the end of the day, we have to talk about it because we're going through it. Our men need to know what's going on. People are getting divorced and kicked out of their house because of these raging hormones. And so we just really need to talk about it. But I have to advocate to say that the pharmacist is somewhere where you can actually get this information from. And it's also a time for all of us during this age to re-engage with our healthcare providers. We've been taking care of everybody else for so long that this is now the time for us to engage with our primary care providers to get all of our labs done and figure out what is going on, because we neglect ourselves for 10 years, 15 years if we're raising kids or if we're focused on our careers. And this is a time for us to really get engaged with our healthcare.
So ladies, what are some of the treatment options? You know, we hear a lot about hormone replacement therapy, and I told all of you all, you know, I'm dating myself because I was on the initial Women's Health Initiative study when they started looking at that, and it took hormone therapy away, and I thought we were going to have a mad rush to, you know, stampede about, you know, what am I going to do now? Now hormone therapy is back. What are some of the other options that we can look at?
Maybe I'll start and then I'll pass it to Tamara as well. You know, I think traditionally the treatment options that have been available to women have been sort of bucketed into the hormone space and then the non-hormone space. But I think it's an opportunity for us in this day and age, both to Camille's point and Tamara's point, for us to sort of reclaim that dialogue and that conversation for our generation and generations to come, and to start talking about what we're experiencing and what we need help with, right? And talk about those symptoms and demand care that addresses those symptoms and addresses it in the manner that works for us individually. And what that means is that we have to ensure that we are being educated about the options that are currently out there to address the challenges that we're having. Again, not have sort of blanket, you know, this is what we have for you, you take it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, oh well, right? You know, no, we need options, right? We need research into these options that address our challenges that we're having that are certainly disrupting our quality of life. And those options range. They can be hormonal, they can be non-hormonal, they could be neither of the two, right? It could be lifestyle changes, it could be diet, it could be any of those things. But the point is to start with, what are you experiencing and what do you need help with? And let's start the conversation there.
Yeah, and I echo your sentiments in terms of, one, what we don't want to hear is that there is not an easy fix to this. Correct. This is hormones, and hormones are variably the most variable biological factor in your body. There's not, your hormones change every single moment, every single day. And so there's no simple pill that's going to stop your symptoms. We got to first understand the science of menopause is the fluctuation of estrogen. And so when it is needed, or when it can be, is that estrogen replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy is effective. But honestly, the most effective thing to managing these phases of menopause, whether you're perimenopause, menopausal, or postmenopause, is healthy living. We just can't do the same things that we used to do when we were younger. We can't go out all night and kick it and drink 3 bottles of champagne and then wake up and go to work in the next day. We just can't do that anymore. And I think that our bodies catch up to us. And if we realize that if we just stick to the formula of healthy living, 150 minutes of exercise per week, drinking lots of water, getting enough sleep, at least 6 to 8 hours, eating whole foods and not processed foods, minimizing sugar, caffeine, fats, alcohol, and edibles, because I know that's getting more and more popular, then we will start to feel better. During the change, we have to take a lot better care of our bodies. And at this time, I also want to take a moment just to address supplements, because I know as Black women, a lot of times we're like, oh, I don't want to take medicine. Oh, I don't want to take hormones. And because hormones have side effects, and they do. So one thing I want to say about the hormones is that if hormones are started before the age of 60, and it's also relevant as to whether or not a person still has the uterus intact, whether or not you're going to be on estrogen, progesterone, or a combination of both. And so these are things for you to talk to your pharmacist and talk to your doctor about what is best for you. It's not a one-size-fits-all type situation. And the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of supplements is supplements are not FDA approved. We love holistic vitamins. This is a time where we want to take a whole bunch of vitamins and a whole bunch of supplements. but they're not FDA approved. So there's no consistency in terms of whether or not what's effective. There's no consistency in terms of what are in these different types of vitamins, because there's no regulation as to what's in them. But we can't ignore the placebo effect. If something makes you feel better, and I want to say that the statistic shows 30% of women that responded to the placebo effect for hot flashes, because you just felt like you were doing something about it. There was no medication in there, nothing. They just felt like they were doing something about it. And so it's nuanced, it's emotional. I just want to encourage everybody to do their own research, but at the same time, you can't knock healthy living. That's the best thing to do.
I also want to add, I think what has already been said, the different options for treating your symptoms, really important. I also think it's important to emphasize that it can be any and all of those things, right? Across the span of your transition period. I am 8 years into my perimenopausal journey. I have tried lifestyle. Lifestyle is foundational, right? Some days I do better with it than others. I was focused on non-hormonal solutions just because that was my personal preference. However, within the past couple of weeks, my symptoms became so disruptive that I was finally ready to try hormones. And within a matter of days, I found myself feeling better. And so I share that. That was because 8 years into my journey, it was something that I researched. It was something I did a lot of education on. I share resources with other women, but personally myself, it wasn't until 8 years, and I really hope I'm on the tail end of this thing. I feel like I am. I'm starting to have some irregularities in my cycle, but that it's not an either or. And so I just want women, sometimes it feels like they're in this binary place of having to make a decision. Do I take hormones? Do I not take hormones? Am I taking the easy way out if I just, take hormones and I just want to rough it out? And, my grandmother suffered through it. It can be any of all of those things. And it's a personal journey. It is a personal journey, and each woman's journey is different, and it can be any or all of those things at any point in time in your menopause transition.
Yeah, and just to put sort of a bow on what's been said, again, it's a journey, and not every option is the right option at every point in time in that journey, right? So it's important to understand what your body's going through, what the symptoms are, speak up about what you're experiencing, and quite frankly, disrupt the status quo, right? Talk about, and ask for the options that are going to help you along with this journey.
And in addition to the type of hormones that you're going to use, dosage form is also variant as well. So if you're a person that don't want to take pills or want to swallow a pill every day, we have suppositories, we have patches. There are a variety of dosage forms, hormone replacement therapy combinations that are available to you. You have options. And I think that's a take-home message that I want to make sure that people understand. You have options, and you do not have to suffer through. And be clear about your system. If you're experiencing vaginal dryness and sex is not pleasurable to you anymore, then that may be the motivation why you want to go and get something to treat yourself. Or if the hot flashes are disruptive. And some of us don't even have hot flashes or any of the more remote system. Some of us are depressed, and some of us have extreme fatigue, and we don't feel like getting out of bed, and we still have to push through anyway because we're taking care of everybody except ourselves. I'm just actually so glad that this whole conversation occurred about perimenopause. So as I started to feel like I don't feel like myself, it's at least an explanation for it. And so I can try to I'm not going to go to happy hour 5 times a week. Now I'm going to cut back a little bit, So it's just knowing what's happening would allow you to take small and large steps. So be okay with all of it.
Yeah. I think this conversation is important because, we have people who are not only on this webinar, me, y'all, our panelists who really run the gamut of the stages, and so we're hearing, how do we manage where we are in each of these stages? But I also want to ask a question, and I'm going to grab Reed in here too, because not only is Reed our resident male, Reed is a physician, and so he's treated women, so he understands these things. How do women advocate for equitable care? We don't always have the luxury, or don't always want a woman doctor. And so our doctors are of different ages, our doctors are different genders. And we as women who are going through the stages of menopause, how do we advocate for equitable care?
Well, first of all, thanks. It's a pleasure to be with you in this great panel. And it can be very challenging, let's be realistic, because the workforce shortages that we are experiencing in healthcare may sometimes make it difficult. But be that notwithstanding, the first step is to know you have rights, to know that you have the responsibility and you have the opportunity and the obligation to find a clinician that meets your needs, someone who you feel that you can share the intimacy of the patient-physician relationship with, whom you can be honest and unburden yourself about the really sensitive and intimate feelings that you have. So you have that right. And if that physician that you have now is not doing that, then you need definitely to go and try to find someone else. Again, knowing though that we sometimes have challenges finding them, it's worth taking the effort to do so. So I would hope you do it. One other point that I would make though also is that women should not be having to advocate by themselves. Women's health is not a women's issue. It is all of our issues. It is the responsibility of men like me to make sure that as our partners are going through this experience, that we are there with and for them, that we are listening to what they have to say, that we are normalizing the ability to have conversations and to speak with each other. We have to be the ones then that say, well, let me accompany you to the doctor's office. And if I can be helpful in getting the attention of that clinician and listening to you, if there's a role that I might play, whether it is direct or indirect, then men have to do that. And I would finally say that in this regard, we always need to have better science. And I am very frustrated as a physician to see the absence of research directed at women's issues. And so therefore, as a man, I am also challenging my brothers that we have to be the ones to also go and be a part of the advocacy effort for Black women's research on their health in general and in menopause in particular.
Reed, thank you so much. Is there anything else that men need to understand about menopause? I know that Tamara said something about, the impending divorce due to this stage of life.
Well, I would hope, by the way, that women would review this show with their male partners so that they would understand. Men have to be much more emotionally supportive. We've got to ask questions. Hey, baby, how are you feeling? Let's talk about it. What's going on in the change of your body? Men have to remember not to take this personally. As we just heard a moment ago, these hormonal challenges are not directed as missiles against you as a man. And so we have to remember that. I'm glad that we mentioned the issue of intimacy because, again, men are a part of that dynamic. Men have to learn to be patient with this. We have to read and understand why the vaginal canal is now more dry and more sensitive. And we have to be prepared to understand that libido may change. So how do we have intimacy that is expressed in different ways? And I think that is also very important for us as men. But at the bottom line, we as men have got to be present for our partner. And even the very smallest of gestures will indicate that we are a team and we're going to navigate this transition as a team.
Thank you. Well, let me bring my experts back to the stage because I have one last question before we transition to the next panel. So as we have women on this webinar who are starting this journey, who are in the middle of this journey, towards the end of this journey, what resources or next steps would you recommend for women to tap into today as they navigate their menopausal journey? And I'm asking this of our whole expert panel.
Maybe I'll start with two that I'll give a shout out to. So the Menopause Society is a great resource. It is a group of physicians that span the spectrum where you can actually find menopause care certified providers, from advanced practice care providers to primary care physicians to OBGYNs, et cetera. You can find that on the site. The National Menopause Foundation as well is an advocacy site that's available to individuals and has tremendous resources, particularly around understanding the journey and what that journey will and may entail for you as you go through the different stages. So those are two really excellent resources.
I'm gonna mention non-traditional resource, which is our female circle of friends and our aunts and our mothers and each other, because it's so variant. And the more that we talk about it, the more that people are going to express what they have been experiencing, and the more you're gonna be able to hear what people are doing to manage it. And then you take all of those resources and you look on the internet, because we can't deny that people look on the internet and listen to social media. You take all of those things and then you go to your provider or your pharmacist. Can't emphasize that enough. And just figure out what is best for you. But I think we need to talk to each other more. Forums just like this is probably the easiest accessible resource and the best resource and for most people.
And Kim, I gotta say again, don't play your partner or black men cheap. Mm-hmm. Be willing to be vulnerable. We can't read your mind. So at some point, be able to say, hey, look, I need your help. I'm not gonna play around with this anymore. I'm gonna open up to you. I'm gonna trust you. I believe in you. You need to be my partner. I need your help.
And I'll just reinforce, I think the Menopause Society and National Menopause Foundation are fabulous resources. I also think it's important to stress on the Menopause Society resource, Menopause Society website, you're going to find certified menopause practitioners. And that doesn't mean that they're the only ones that can help you address your symptoms during menopause transition, but they do have some specialized education and some extra education focused on this life stage and treating you through menopause. And if you can't find one in your area, there are telehealth options also that are accessible on the Menopause Society website. I think what we didn't get to in this conversation, it just means that hopefully there'll be additional conversations around accessibility and affordability for those who don't live in an area where you can go and see a certified practitioner. Virtual care can be a good option for you, a good and affordable option. And so I think that'll be my last contribution.
I love that virtual care.
Yes. One more thing that I want to mention for those of us that are not really into traditional medicine, to look into functional medicine. It's like the marriage between holistic medicine and traditional medicine. So you're going to get your labs drawn, but that functional medicine provider will probably be able to give you alternative methods in terms of how to treat your symptoms. So that's kind of like a meet in the middle.
All right, experts, you all have said quite a few words tonight. I cannot thank you enough for all that you have brought. I'm going to ask our audience to make sure that they put their questions in the chat. We will get to them at the end of the webinar, but I want to thank you all and ask you all to hang around a little bit if you can while we move into the next panels. But thank you so much for all of the expertise that you have brought to us today. We are going to now transition into the next panel. This is the panel that I call the panel of wow women. Each of them is truly at the top of their games in their fields. But as we know, each of us are either facing menopause, or will be facing menopause, or in the middle of menopause. And what we are so excited about is that these ladies, and you know who they are our sheroes. They are here to share their personal stories. So we're excited to hear them speak. Let me introduce them to you. We have Faith Blackbourne Proctor. She is an NAACP National Board member, and I'm so proud that she is also a member of the Black Women's Agenda Board of Directors. Welcome, Faith. We have Kuae Noel Kelch. Noel Kelch, she is the National President of Mocha Moms Incorporated. Welcome, Kuae. We have Cheryl W. Turner, International President and CEO of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome, Cheryl. We have Dr. Stacie NC Grant, International Grand Bosseless of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and President of the Presidents of the D9 Council of Presidents. Welcome, Stacie. And then I'm going to say welcome, Madam Presidents, to all of you all. And then last but certainly not least, we have Marcia T. Harris, who is the International Grand Bosseless of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. So Madam Presidents, Madam Board Member, welcome to this forum. So I want to start personally with a few questions about your menopause journey. When did you first learn about menopause or perimenopause, and what did that moment teach you about how we talk or don't talk about women's health?
Well, I think go ahead.
Oh, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this timely conversation. I'm going to say my journey started when my mom was in her season of menopause, and the house was cold, and everyone in the house had to have extra coverings because growing up in New York, it was cold in the wintertime and windows were open year round. And so it was nothing that she talked about. We just knew that the house was going to be cold when it got cooler. And so for me, when I started, same thing, kind of cold, have to keep the window open. And my husband always teases me because he will have 5 blankets on and I will just have on a sheet with my foot sticking out. And so that is how we manage here in the Proctor household. But
house.
it's something that and I was listening to the first panel, it's something that our mothers and grandmothers didn't really talk about, but you just knew that it was happening because either they were breaking out in the sweat or the house just got very cool. And so even with that, we laugh and joke with some of our friends about what's happening to us. And so I think from that, we're starting now to turn the corner to talk about it more. And so I think we're at a different place in terms of talking with each other and knowing what our symptoms are.
Thank you.
President Blackbourne, I had the same experience as you. My mom was going through her season growing up in Mississippi. You know how hot it is in the summer.
Yes.
So, it was always fans or things like that going. But what I remember also is just this sudden, abrupt rush to grab something to fan with. And you would see that not only at home, but at church. I remember seeing that as I was growing up in church and never really understanding, asking, and the explanation was, going through the change of life. Never knew what the change of life was, but that was how it was presented. Once I grew into adulthood, I remember distinctly being at a step class in gym and feeling this wave of heat that was moving through my body. I didn't understand what it was. I thought something was actually wrong with me, and I didn't want to mention it in the room at that point. But when I did mention it, that's what I was told. Oh, you're having a hot flash. So there began my journey into that.
Wow.
And compared to some friends, I did not have the frequency or the extent of hot flashes that several of them were having. Mm-hmm. But it is enough to, just concern you, bother you, and all those other things that go along with that.
Well, I'll jump in and say that my experience was hearing my mother tell her sisters that she bought Lydia Pinkham And I was like, what is Lydia Pinkham? While they were suffering and going outside, half stripping, she said, oh, I'm fine. I took my Lydia Pinkham and I heard her talk about Lydia Pinkham and bee pollen. Had it all wrong. I had to ask her when I finally said, Mom, why did you talk about Lydia Pinkham and bee pollen? She said, you mixed it up, child. The bee pollen was your grandfather, the good old Jamaican remedies put in bees to sting his knee for the author and his writers. But that was what my introduction was Lydia Pinkham. So I bought some Lydia Pinkham, still haven't even opened the package because I feel like I've been flashing since I had my first son. I was overheating. I'm like, what is going on in my body? And I would totally freeze my husband out all the time. And he's like, what is wrong with you? It is not that hot. I'm like, I'm hot. And I couldn't understand. So when I started getting of the age and I started feeling a little something, it wasn't really strange to me because I felt like I've been going through this for years. But then when that first wave took over, I said, oh, Jesus, take the wheel. What is happening? Because we don't really talk about all the other things that come, the mood swings, the brain fog, all the things that we were talking about tonight. So while I have the bottle of Lydia Pinkham, my mother said it worked. I still haven't taken one, but I try to eliminate certain things from my diet that I feel triggers me getting a flash. Like I love drinking coffee every now and then, but I realize that can trigger something. If I'm having, I can't even think of all of the foods, but I've started making a little notation of how my body reacts when I have certain things. Even a glass of wine sometimes. Oh, did I say that? But that could also trigger a reaction. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation. We're normalizing it. My youngest sister just said to me when I told her about this panel, she said, what do I need to prepare for? I said, honey, everything. Because the way our bodies are set up, we all handle it differently. So I'm glad that we can talk about this because I think I need a patch. I might need help after this call, but I'll end there, Dr. Jeffries. Thank you for having us.
I think my experience was slightly different. I am the daughter of two educators, a college professor and a drama teacher. My mom was an extrovert. She was very outgoing and very talkative and wanted to share and talk about everything. I remember a period of time in the late 70s when she became very sick and she went through radiation and chemotherapy. And I remember her saying to me that she went through menopause early. And my understanding of it back then was, oh, I guess that just meant that her period stopped. And she never really went into details. So I knew a little something, but I didn't know too much. And, I do remember her having hot flashes and she said that, that had something to do with menopause, but there was never any, intricacy. There were never any details. And I never fully understood it until I had my very first hot flash. And I said, whoo, what is this? What's going on? And then it continued. And I realized that I was in it.
Yes, and I will say for me, growing up in my household, it seemed like anything sex related, anything about women's bodies was so taboo. One thing I think that triggered me was when I first started my period, my mother, her question that she asked me was, did anyone ever ask you to have sex? And of course, I'm not going to lie to my mother. I said yes. And she said, what did you say? I said, no. And she said, do you know what will happen if you get pregnant? And I just looked at her and I said, you'll kill me. And she was like, yes. And so I think that was like the taboo of not even talking about anything related to anything sex, let alone any women's related issues. So most of the things that I learned growing up was from my friends or from classes in school. Now, as I'm older and she's older, and like I could see times where she would just be sweating, and it was funny to me and my sisters. It was like, why are you always sweating? Like, what is going on with you? But it was never the conversation like, well, this is a part of life. Don't worry, this is going to happen to you. But now that it seems to be more of a common conversation, we're talking about it more, and she's sharing a little bit more, and it doesn't seem as taboo anymore. But didn't want to talk about anything related to grandparents, grandmothers, never talked about it. It was just, you see, like everyone else said, the hot, the cold. Even in my house today with my husband, we're talking about it. I tell him it's three things, either the fan, the window, or the AC. Which one you want to choose? because I'm going to need to be relieved in some kind of way. So I'm enjoying this conversation, and I hope that we continue to have many more conversations about this. It's very important.
I think this is probably going to be one of the first of many. And I just want to say to this panel, thank you, thank you, thank you, because I don't think you all understand the power that this conversation has when women who are in these respective organizations and women who are not in these respective organizations can look at the leaders here and say, well, if they can sit up here and talk about their menopausal experiences, there's no reason why I can't talk about my menopausal experiences. You all are literally speaking this truth to power. I mean, you are the power, and you are speaking your truth in this area. And so I think I just can't tell you how full I am. It's like the old people say about, this panel. So I know that the fact that you're here means that you have moved past any kind of concerns you've had about talking about menopause. But what helped you move past that and say, yes, I'm going to have this conversation?
I think what really helped me was having friends who are the same age and just talking with them. I lean very heavily on sisterhoods. Mocha Moms, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Jack and Jill. I lean really heavily on sisterhoods. And as I talk to other women who are the same age and whom I've known for many, many years, we commiserate. We talk about the things that we're experiencing, and that makes it a whole heck of a lot easier to talk about it when you surround yourself with people who are going through it at the same time.
And I think
agree. Oh, go ahead, Faith.
So I think also we're in a different age and time where information is just flowing all around us. And I think women are more open about talking about it, or even if they don't talk about it, you see the symptoms when someone starts to pat their head or take the jacket off, or out comes the fan, or the closest thing that they can use to the fan. I think that's a way that we are more apt to talk about what's going on with us, and just kind of let's say bond more. Kuae said commiserate, and sometimes it is, but I think we're at that point where we can talk about it more freely, and we're good with sharing what's going on with us.
I think, oh,
go on, Stacie.
I was just going to say it normalizes the conversation, because our sister-to-sister groups, we can laugh about it, cry about it, scream about it, but you don't have to keep it in. And I think that's the key in this conversation, is that we're elevating the fact that it's okay to talk about what you're going through. And that's on a myriad of situations that we can spotlight. But tonight it's about menopause. It's a real part of our lives, of our work. It affects how we do what we do. And the more we can find out information, like was shared on the first panel, it helps us to be empowered over our bodies and our lives, and not just play victim to a natural progression of what happens as we get a little older. I call it more seasoned. That's, we don't get old, we're just more seasoned.
Let me also add that we have also normalized the carrying of fans.
Oh,
I mean, yes. Everyone has a fan, and when everyone was like, where them fans at? And we all had our fans. I mean, it not only made me happy because I was dancing to the dance, but it made me happy because I had my fan with me. So we've also normalized fans.
Yes.
It didn't used to be the thing growing up.
Nope.
Gwen, you're absolutely right. Not only the fans associated with the dance, but the electric, the ones that people have around their necks. And, it's very common now to see that. And I agree with that sense of community. When you have people that you're walking through this journey with, your age and all of your friends, and you tend to talk more about it. And I think each generation, people are more open to discussing it, because it's, a part of TV shows. It's a part of, just so many of those life experiences that it truly has gotten to be no big deal.
Yes, and it allows you to let you know that you're not alone in this journey, right? That there's someone else that's going through something similar as you, and that you have them as a resource. You could share information and knowledge. I know with Sigma Gamma Rho, we have MDs in our organization that have created group me's and support networks for other members of our organization where they can tap into it. They can learn additional information, just learn about research that may have been false in the past, and share information about other alternative ways to treat this. We're also encouraging our younger members that want to go to school to be OBs or GYNs. We're tasking them with, it is your responsibility to help come up with a cure for this, because hopefully you'll get to age and you'll be able to go through the change of life, but you have an opportunity to create something different for the next generation.
Yeah. You know, Madam Ground Bosselist Harris, you kind of took one of my questions. Tell me what your organizations are doing as it relates to this issue and women's health.
So I'll jump right into what my dear sister president said. I actually had our regional directors come to me with an idea to actually feature a town hall about menopause. And it was such a hit that we had to do a part 2, and that the OBGYN that we did have on as our expert, she was able to create community for everyone to go and to have conversations. But it was the chat was on fire. Like when everyone said, wait, I had that symptom. Oh, I didn't know about that. And it just started building all of this instant community around the knowledge. And even some of our members who had not experienced the symptoms, they just wanted to know what to look out for. And they were a part of the conversation. So we decided that would be something we would continue, and to create space, like President Harris said, around how do we just keep them informed and engaged in a safe place. So there's no judgment. And because we have the fans, we have the flashes, everybody knows, we're able to chuckle about it. And once again, normalize the conversations of being the person who's managing your own body. And if something doesn't feel right, it doesn't seem right, speak up and learn how to advocate for yourself, and find a doctor that will give you correct information.
Right. The one thing that we do at the NAACP, we have almost 2,200 branches, adult branches, and almost 1,000 youth and college chapters across the country. We have seminars like this and webinars like this that we take back to our units, and so they can share the information in their community. As a member of the National Board of Directors, we set policy, and so any policy that has to deal with women health, reproductive health, and health equity, we are sending that information out to our units, and they have their boots on the ground and talk to their neighbors and family and friends and get them on board to advocate for their own health. I know for me, when I started, it was like, woo, flame on. And you watch cartoons, there is this character from one of them that's always angry, and then he's hot. So he just will start just start to flame up. And I'm like, okay, I use that in my emoji. He's constantly in there. But, I had to do my own research and see, okay, what is triggering these hot flashes? I know we talked about that in the earlier conversation, and I learned what my triggers are, which are caffeine, sometimes chocolate, and alcohol. And okay, up to 3, I'm not giving up chocolate, so I'm good with not doing caffeine or with alcohol. But I think, again, we are arming ourselves with knowledge of what impacts our body, and then how we can have the conversation with our care providers and say, okay, I'm going through this. And I knew I didn't want to do hormone replacement therapy. And so I chose the route of going cold-blooded, so to say, or wishing I could be cold. And sometimes, but that's just my personal choice. But I know other women have different choices depending on what their needs are.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
With Mocha Moms, we talk a lot about health and wellness, and in particular, we talk about self-care, because we spend so much time caring for our children and notoriously not enough time caring for ourselves. We have a monthly series that we call Parent Nation, and we talk about a bunch of things: stress, anxiety, diet for your health. We're going to do one on menopause. We're going to talk more about this, and spurred in part by the conversation that started at the Black Women's Agenda Symposium in September. It was a great symposium, lots of conversation, lots of myth busting, and it's going to be important for us to impart that information to our moms.
Yeah. Under our physical and mental health umbrella, we have Wellness Wednesdays that we've been doing to talk about topics that impact us and affect women. But being here is the beauty of being around innovative, brilliant women that have these ideas. I love that idea that President Harris mentioned about the physician circles. And of course, President Grant's town halls on menopause. We haven't come out with a specific focus on menopause, but knowing that that's something that will impact every member of each of our organizations is a cause to have it at the front. And going back and making sure that we do that is something I'll be checking into and doing, definitely.
You know, you all are truly inspiring to me. And I feel as though, you know, this panel, as I say, you all are the wow women. Tell me, as leaders of hundreds of thousands of women, as President Turner said, who either are in this or going to be in this, but we know it's going to impact all of our women, all women. What one message of encouragement would you all share as in the positions that you are in, as the leaders that you are, for women who are at any point in this chapter of their lives?
I think I would share that you are not alone, and lean on us, lean on each other, talk to each other. You'll find that often if you think you're the only person who's experiencing something in a room, you're not. And there are people who are there to support you, to love on you. And lastly, I think I would share with them that menopause is a gift. And that's how we need to look at it. It is a gift of womanhood. It is a gift of the seasons of womanhood. And I think if we think about it that way, it really will help us get through it. The other thing that I learned in that session during the symposium, and I'd love to hear more about this, is that menopause doesn't end. So when we talk about it ending and post-menopause, one of the myths that was busted for me was to hear that it doesn't end. So I'd like to talk more about that. This is a part of our lives. It's an important part of our lives. We need to learn how to manage it. We need to learn how to get through it. But with the knowledge that it doesn't end, we can see it as a gift.
You know, that was a myth that was busted, and it made a lot of us feel a certain
Ooh, that took me.
Certain kind of way. I had a straight attitude.
Yes, we all had to work through that conversation. I think that was Dr. Yesmean who said that, who's still on here. So we could, that was her.
Yeah,
Never forgot it.
Listen,
Madam President. Go ahead.
No, I think I wanted to jump on the stage and fight her when she said that it doesn't end, because I think we were all sitting next to each other, Dr. Grant and President Turner, and we looked at each other like, it doesn't end? Like, what? I will say, for me, what I would want people to know is that self-care is important, and you have to check on yourself. You're no good to anyone else if you're not well. Be okay with asking questions of others. Be okay with not feeling well, but be okay and be intentional about taking time out for yourself, because that is important as well. And like you said, menopause is a part of the circle of life for women. It's a blessing to be able to go through it. It's a journey. And I have hope for the future that there will be someone, I got money down for them, that will solve this. and will help to find a cure.
We'll put some money in there too with you.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm as evolved as my fellow presidents here because I don't know about a gift. It don't feel like no gift. But I do appreciate the fact that it does signal that we've reached a certain stage in motherhood. But I need MENA to pause because it is more than a notion. But I would say on an encouraging note that this kind of community is what will help you get through it, where we can get the facts, we can learn more about our own bodies and be okay with asking for help. And I think that was one of the things that I know for me personally, and just watching people in my friend group, we always think we can carry the world on our shoulders and we have this superwoman cape on. And sometimes you just need to lay the cape down and say, I need help. What can I do? Who can I go to? Do you have a great doctor that will talk to me, that'll walk me through, that'll be patient so that I can understand how to advocate for myself and what to do? And I love that we had, from a man's perspective, how you can talk to your partners, your husband, so they don't feel just frozen in a room, but that they can understand more about what you're going through. So take advantage of what is available. You can no longer say you don't know about any issues with how to deal with menopause. BWA has removed that from you tonight. So the action is, what are you going to do as a result of this conversation? And who else are you going to tell? Share the replay so that we can start empowering more women to take control of their experience. I'm still on the fence about the gift, but the experience that God allows us to go through.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to talk to Eve in heaven.
Yeah, I agree with all of the above. And I'm with Stacie on the gift. You know, what do the kids say, 6, 7? I want to, it's about community. It's about what we've been saying. It's about community and making sure that you share. And when we talk about research, there's so many things out here, but I don't know if y'all know about this book. I pulled it because I had been reading it, Grown Women Talk by Dr. Sharon Malone. And she has a chapter on perimenopause. She has a chapter on menopause. And when you pick that up, it just makes things a lot clearer to you. And this way, too, with factual information, we can begin to really talk to the younger women or women in our circles and give them something a lot more solid than, girl, you're going to go through it and wait, those type conversations. But this is a good
I'm so
book.
glad that you brought Dr. Malone's book out because, she's been trying to get on this panel with us for a minute, but she's so in demand. She's had some conflict. She actually had a conflict this evening. So I'm going to let her know she was summoned to the front. And at the next panel we need to have her on too. So thank you for shouting her out. Thank you so much, President Turner.
And I was going to add that she, in doing my research for this, she has a YouTube clip where she's talking about what every Black woman should know about navigating menopause, and that may or may not be part of her book. But I think it's also when you start to take your own journey in terms of researching what's out there, what facts. We talked about organizations that are geared toward helping, or the whole conversation of menopause and perimenopause. It's finding out what works best for you. And again, as my fellow panelists say, talk to each other. And I think, again, we're at the point where we're talking about it more and we feel more comfortable in our skin when we do talk to our friends and sisters and sister friends about it.
I think that is very important. All of the things that you all have left us with is really information that we need. And I just want to thank you again for your honesty, for your courage, and for your leadership, because what this panel has done, you have reminded us that real change happens when we speak from experience and when sisterhood meets strategy. And every one of y'all got a strategy. And I love that. This will not be the last time that we have this conversation. And I love the fact that in your respective spaces, this conversation is ongoing. So together, what I think is that we are literally redefining how Black women experience aging, health, and power. And this gift that we have received of menopause. So
willingly and unwillingly.
that's right. Either way we want it, we go. We're gonna get there. So I want to thank you all so much for this conversation. Please know it won't be our last conversation. Don't get upset when you get the call from me again, because I think that this is it's really important. And I think that the women that look up to you of all ages really do benefit from hearing from you. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you for being here tonight. We are going to now hear from our audience, our participants. And, this is a town hall, your voices matter. And so I know that there have been questions that have been sent to us and put in the chat. And so let me see, where we've started so we can get started. The first question I think that was sent was, does health literacy, institutional racism, socioeconomic inequality impact the support that minority women get during the various phases of menopause? Who wants to take that one?
Yes, it absolutely does. To quote Malcolm X, the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And so gender bias in women's health care results in delayed diagnosis, misdiagnosis, and poor health outcomes because women's symptoms are dismissed, they are ignored, and it's a historical lack of female-focused medical research and implicit biases.
Yeah.
And that always remains the case, and we know that. But now that we know that, we need to continue to know that. So what are the alternates? What are the solutions? And so now we are today talking about what the solutions are and how we move forward with that.
I want to put a little plug in. I think this is probably what Yasmean's going to say too. When we see studies that ask for Black women to join. Sometimes there are studies specifically about, for Black women, and sometimes there are clinical trials that just, are asking people. We need to be a part of those, because if we're not a part of those, then there's nothing for anybody to base anything on. When we look at these treatments, yes, they've been normed on people who don't look like us, who may not necessarily be our gender, but we also have to step up and move forward and get in these studies. I know that there are some historical issues. I don't think those are the case anymore. I know we were fortunate enough to have Kizzmekia Corbett on during COVID, and she kind of myth bust. Yeah, I know we gonna bring Tuskegee up at every level, but Tuskegee is then, and that's not necessarily happening now. So we do have to step up. But Yasmean, I took over. I apologize.
No, thank you so much, Kimberly. You hit the nail right on the head with that. And the other piece that I'll add on to that is the following. The repercussions of what Tamara mentioned are real, right? We know that, Black women will oftentimes experience more severe symptoms of menopause. For example, vasomotor symptoms are the hot flashes that, folks talked about. And there's real consequences of that. And we see the data now that's suggesting that Black women will have worse cardiovascular outcomes because of the more severe symptoms that they're facing during this transition, right? We know that having worse symptoms like vasomotor symptoms during that transition put women at a higher risk of dementia and cognitive decline, right? So there are real serious side effects and implications of the delays in diagnosis, of the misdiagnoses, of the mistreatment, et cetera. And that is why, for all the reasons that we've said today, it's time to, again, change the dynamic that the status quo that's been established around this, especially for Black women in this category.
And I would just reinforce that it's all the more important to have conversations, and really kudos to BWA for continuing this conversation, because the more we have the discussion, the more we do normalize it. I listened to the last panel where seeing leaders model what conversation looks like, the importance of the research, the study for women's health across the nation is right. Without that data, looking at menopause longitudinally across socioeconomic backgrounds, racial and ethnic backgrounds, right? Without that data, I don't know that we would have the insights that we have today on how Black women in this country experience menopause. And so, again, you know, we don't want to be dismissive of the distrust with the healthcare system or clinical research. And it's only through normalizing it and having more conversation and using voices and advocating for greater awareness and inclusion that I think we'll start to feel more comfortable placing ourselves in those opportunities.
Thank you.
Kim, you also have to look at, I work for healthcare. I work in the healthcare field. And when you talk about African American women in clinical trials, it's almost non-existent. And so for us to have these conversations, we still have to encourage us to be in those studies. They're not, because when it comes to diagnosing and understanding what your symptoms are, the medical partners, your practitioners may not know everything unless we're in those studies and unless we participate and talk more about it. And then once we share the results of research found and how it's impacting and why it's impacting, we have to share those things. I work with Cheryl, I'll tell you, I work with Delta Research Education Foundation, and they have what they call 22, the Delta 22 in their researchers. And we have one, Dr. Kimberly Henry, who her research is on women in menopause and perimenopause and exploring all that is impactful and impacting African American women, and she's just one of many. Each of the sororities and fraternities have researchers that do this work, and so we have to really come to the table and talk about what our research is, one, and how it's impacting us too, and what we won't know unless we're in them, in the studies.
And I think that's an important part to just really drive home, that when we talk about the studies and we talk about our participation, it will invite the members that we have influence with to participate, because of all of the challenge around going back to Tuskegee and just the distrust with, being the unprotected class, as our sister shared, and that we are at a place now where we can influence others to raise their hand and say, I'll participate, I'll share data, I'll go in this trial because it's helping us. But if we don't really understand how it helps us, then we're still hesitant to participate. So I think that's another powerful opportunity for BWA, ARP, and all of our member organizations to just continue to share and get the word out so that we can have culturally responsive data that we're working with. And I really applaud everyone here for being a part of advancing this very courageous conversation, because we haven't had it like this in a long time and not in open spaces enough.
Yeah, you all are. This is amazing. Yes, I thank you all so much for saying this, because just this response to this question will move people to decide they will participate in clinical trials, and that will make a huge difference, or participate in research, and that will begin to make a huge difference. Here's another question. The next question is, can you talk about vaginal atrophy and possible treatments?
Thank you. I will take this question. So as I mentioned before, vaginal atrophy is usually associated with the decrease in estrogen. And so there is a specific dosage form, which is the vaginal suppository, that is made just for that, or they also have a vaginal gel that is available. And one thing I also wanted to mention is that while we have commercially available products, we also have compounded products that can be compounded by your pharmacist. I'm probably getting on your nerves about that, but it is American Pharmacist Month. That can make the dosage very specific for you. And so those are the two options that I just wanted to highlight. And again, if you don't feel keen on inserting something into your crevice like that, then the patch and the pill is also something that can be done, again, to try to increase that estrogen to help relieve that vaginal atrophy.
Thank you, Doctor. Oh, go ahead, Doctor.
No, it's okay. Thank you, Kim. I just wanted to sort of make a comment that I've been thinking about during this conversation as we've been talking about different options. I think credit to Tamara and Camille and the second panel that talked about the different options available to us. I also want to draw attention to, I think, a growing trend of options that are being offered, because I think there is an understanding that there's a huge unmet need in this space. And so unfortunately, there may be those that offer solutions that are not necessarily rooted in evidence. Right?
Yeah.
And so this is just my call out, my watch out, right? For all of those out there, be very keen on what it is that you are accepting, right? To enter into your temple, right? And to use within your temple, because I think that there's a groundswell now around menopause. There's a lot of information out there, and there are those unfortunate that are unfortunately out there. They will try to leverage that and take advantage of it, which means they will take advantage of people's yearning for solutions, right? So that's why it's so important to have conversations like these, to turn to individuals like Tamara mentioned. You got pharmacists, very readily available, advanced practice providers, physicians, clinicians, all of whom are very trusted resources that want to help. Turn to them and be mindful of, again, what people are trying to push across to you to expose your temple to.
Thank you for that reminder, Yesmean. I think that is truly important. And I love the fact that it is our temple. And we have to take care of it, because once it's gone or damaged, that's it. This is the only one we have. So thank you for reminding us about that. The next question we have: there are often compounding conditions like PCOS that further impact perimenopause and postmenopausal women. How do we go about advocating for ourselves when we face more than one condition? How do we seek care for compounded conditions?
I can take that.
I think that's on you. Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I want to be thoughtful. So it's important to know that having comorbid conditions is sort of how we refer to it clinically, definitely plays a role in how one will experience, just being an individual, right? Individuals have differing experiences as they go through the perimenopausal, menopausal transition. Now, layer on top of that, having comorbid conditions, it is for sure going to be, contribute to your experience. And the way that you address that is by addressing the other conditions in the best way possible, through very similar mechanisms, right? Making sure that you are exposed to the right kind of providers that can ensure that whatever condition that is that you're living with is managed appropriately, and that you're caring for yourself in sort of a proactive way, and making sure you are at your healthiest as you enter into a phase that we are inevitably all going to enter, if that makes sense, right? So making sure that your health is unlocked, that your temple is as the best it can be, is the best way to handle that.
Yep. Okay. And I just want to add that it is very important for everybody to have a primary care provider, because your primary care provider is going to holistically look at you overall. They're going to take your lab work, you're going to get your physical done, and then at that time, that's your anchor provider, and then you can branch out to some of the other specialties, including the OBGYN, et cetera. And so with the primary care provider, and I'm embarrassed to say, but I am going to say it, I went to see my primary care provider. I'm a whole pharmacist. I'm talking about advocacy and health equity. I went to the doctor, finally made an appointment. She said I had not been there since 2017. I didn't even know it had been that long. And I'm conscientious. So I am challenging everybody that is under the sound of my voice, if you have not, to please make a appointment for yourself, not for your parents that you're taking care of or your children, but for yourself with your primary care provider so that you can get a full physical done and start there.
Amen. And may I add, please, please, please keep in mind always, you are greater than the sum of your parts, right? You should be treated always as a holistic individual, right? It's not about, sort of different body parts and checking the boxes off. You are a whole person and you should be treated as such.
I also wanted to add to what Dr. McCants was saying, is that we absolutely need a primary care physician, particularly as we're aging. We also, it was my experience, and I think it's something we don't talk about enough. I referenced in the earlier panel that I'd had a decades-long relationship with an OBGYN and yet was still unprepared when I found myself in perimenopause. And initially I was deeply irritated and felt let down by my doctor. And I have since, through my own research and greater understanding, come to learn that many of our OBGYNs never received medical education, never received menopause education in medical school and never in residency. So they are not well prepared to treat us when we reach this life stage. That's why it can make a difference to see a certified practitioner. Not exclusively. There are, some OBGYNs who have invested on their own time and will be well prepared. You might just have to do a bit of trial and error, and that can be frustrating when you're not feeling your best or when you feel like you've had a relationship with a doctor and you have to start all over. I hate to tell you this. It's something Dr. Malone will say over and over and over again. You are responsible for your well-being and your health care. And if you don't have a doctor that can meet you where you are in your menopause journey, then you should find a new one. Another important point, when you do find that doctor, right, you want to schedule a specific menopause consultation, right? You can't tack on the menopause conversation with your wellness visit. The wellness visit is coded to insurance very differently. They're meant to see you in 15, 20 minutes, and then you leave frustrated because you haven't had time or they felt dismissive when you wanted to talk about your menopause symptoms. Make sure you schedule and request a menopause consultation specifically, which is coded differently, and the time is allocated differently, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. So important points when we're talking about seeking care.
Can I add into this, maybe also take an advocate with you or take someone with you who doesn't get caught up in these keywords that people are saying and that your physician is saying, and that can make sure that they stay on track with the issues that you have and the questions that you have, and not get, because sometimes we will go into the doctor and they'll say one thing and it takes us off on a whole different path because that's what we heard, and we're not continuing or even hearing some of the other things that they say. So sometimes it's also beneficial to take someone with you when you go.
Absolutely.
So we have another question here. Do you know if night sweats are a symptom of perimenopause? It was mentioned that you get hot, but was curious if sweating comes with that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sometimes separate from the hot flashes.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, I think all of us on this call can say yeah. Definitely. The next question. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say page 208 of the book.
We need to check and see how many books you sold tonight. Yes, how many books after this call. So here's another question. This person is glad we're having this conversation. And some of the symptoms like depression are absolutely debilitating. That is correct. My first visit, they would not believe I was perimenopausal because of my age. It was not until my cycle became irregular that they would listen, and it has been a journey. I was not prepared because women in my family did not have these discussions. Many women are at the peaks of their careers. What advice or tips do you give to help manage your emotions when you are leading in careers? Great question.
I'm gonna stop. Go ahead.
Yeah, you have to be your own self-advocate. You know your body. You know when you're off. I just will echo, and I can't say enough. If you are meeting with a practitioner that is dismissive of your symptoms, and you know that there's something going on with you, you have to find another practitioner. I mean, the days of having a doctor that tracks with you and knows what's going on with you are unfortunately, I think, for the most part, behind us. And so, find someone who will listen to you. This question is absolutely representative of my own experience. I began experiencing perimenopause, the earliest perimenopause symptoms at 43. I will be 52 in December, and I am still perimenopausal. I've only recently began to experience changes to my cycle, which gets me really excited that I'm on the tail end of the journey, but it has been challenging. One of the first the symptoms I experienced was rage, and it was most prevalent in the workplace. And it terrified me because I was navigating on a nonprofit career executive track, while also managing the angry Black woman trope, but really feeling angry. Like rage, right? And I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but it was terrifying. And so that is actually what kind of drove me to start researching about what was going on with me, and self-diagnosed that I was likely in perimenopause, and made a conscious decision that I was going to talk openly about what I was experiencing. And if I couldn't do it in an environment like AARP, then there was really no place that I could do that, right, and feel supported or not stigmatized. But outside of that, at the time, we weren't doing a lot of menopause programming at AARP. So I began blogging, and it's evolved into a platform focused on the storytelling and the insights of women of color, because it was unacceptable that that any woman would come and feel she was alone, right? That would get to this life stage, have no idea what was going on with her, go along managing her happy Black business, right, and then wind up like, I feel crazy. I removed myself from professional opportunities because I didn't trust my self-regulation. And so that's why this is important too, to have these conversations. Whoever asked that question, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't go off on a tangent. It is important. Seek someone out who will speak with you. Go to HR, seek out workplace programs and supports. If you have an ERG, try to, move this issue through your ERG. That's how it started at AARP. And now we are into our third year of robust programming where women are just clamoring to have the conversation.
And Camille, I'll add, I think, to what you've eloquently and so beautifully shared with us today. Something insidious with the onset of these perimenopausal symptoms that we don't often recognize right off the bat is a disruption in sleep. That disruption in sleep plays such a huge role in the symptoms that the person posing the question is asked about, and what you've heard Camille speak about, right? And again, oftentimes we as women, Black women, are dismissed, right? When we were like, look, I'm just not feeling myself, I'm having a lot of brain fog, all of that, it's dismissed. Although we are, it's stemming from, again, our disruptions in sleep and many more of the other physiological effects that happen through this transition. But it's, again, something not to be ignored and to be called out when you're seeking out help.
And I want to mention one more thing about the depression and the suicidal ideation that we haven't talked about yet. We are so used to just pushing through, and we are so used to just normalizing some of these things that are not normal. If you are tired, if you lost interest in your activities that you don't usually do, if you're sleeping too much or you're sleeping too little, and all of that has happened for more than 2 weeks or more, you cannot ignore those symptoms. If you have one fleeting thought of you don't want to be here no more, even something as simple as, what if I just drove off this bridge or drove off this road? Who would care if I even left? It shows up like that, not necessarily, oh, I want to shoot myself or I want to, it's these subtle things that we kind of think is normal. And I'm just want to emphasize it's not normal. Please do not ignore that. And if it's any men here or any family or friends, if you hear your friends are telling you that they are sad, or you just see them acting different, please bring it to the forefront, because there's too many treatment options that are available to help people to address depression. And we stay in depression too long and we self-medicate with other things without really addressing the symptoms. We need to recognize the symptoms and address them quickly.
And for me, as a licensed, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
As a licensed social worker, self-care is important, and we have continuously talked about that. We have to, one, eliminate the stigmas that mental health and seeking counseling, especially in the African-American community, is not important. We know our bodies, and it's important to take advantage of the resources. If you're working, there's EAP resources. If you're not working, there are free counseling opportunities and Black women groups of therapists that are there to help and support. So we have to know who our tribe is, but don't be afraid to interview people. You don't have to accept the first therapist that you start talking to, that there's other women. If it doesn't work for you, seek out other people, but don't stick behind the stigma, because that's where you end up being in a place where you don't want to be in and you feel like you're all alone. And then, you put yourself in a situation that you may not be able to get out of, but be okay with talking to someone.
We have, it's going close to 10 o'clock now, and I know we have lots of questions. What I'd like to do is just answer one or two more, and then maybe what we can do is put some of these answers on our website or on social media, or maybe what we need to do is have a quarterly Ask the Doctor, so we can have a conversation, so we can continue this conversation. But let me go to this next question, and then we're going to wrap it up, because I know that our panelists have been so very generous with their time, and our participants have been so very generous with our time. And I know we have more questions, but we promise we'll figure out a way to get these answers out to our participants. So the next question, which I think will be our last question, what is helpful for cancer survivors that were estrogen positive or estrogen sensitive?
So I can jump in and maybe then again turn to you, Tamara, as my my partner from a healthcare provider perspective. There are non-hormonal options that are available, including very recent approvals that have come through, in fact, this past week, in the non-hormonal space, that can help those individuals who are experiencing symptoms of menopause, particularly vasomotor symptoms, even if they have a history of cancer. And so the good news is options are available. Research is being done in this space. There's a recognition that there is a huge unmet need. And, it's about, again, seeking those options out and talking to your provider about what's going to work for you.
Yeah. And so, again, echoing what was just stated in terms of just understanding your symptoms and treating the symptoms. Yeah. So, for example, like if we have vaginal dryness, there's lubricants that can be made, that can be utilized for hot flashes. High dose vitamin C is effective at times. So it's just really thinking about the system. If it's depression and antidepressant, so just really looking at the symptoms and treating the individual symptoms. And it may be a situation where you are ending up on a few medications to even you out, and that's totally fine. And that's for, for anybody. Those are options for everybody.
All right. This has been the Dream Panel. I mean, this whole group of amazing women, my wow women, my expert of experts, I just cannot thank you for enough for spending your time this evening with us to talk about this topic. I want to thank President Guinevere Kelch for, allowing us, having the foresight to put this on, and AARP for being our very special sponsor here. So what we've done this evening, we have really affirmed that menopause is not the end. It's ongoing. It's a pivot. It's a season of growth. It's a season of purpose. And it's a season of renewed strength. So we are going to continue this conversation. In some way, we will answer questions, but we also are going to continue to uplift each other, normalize the conversation around menopause, and ensure every woman, Black, whatever the color, that she deserves care, compassion, and understanding at every age and every phase of her menopause journey. So we keep watching our website and our social media. We're going to continue to post resources and any upcoming programs, and we will get your questions answered. And I don't think this is the last time that we come together to have this conversation. But until the next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and thank you so much for joining us.